So I'm going to spend a bit more time discussing A/B testing in particular because it's such a powerful technique. It gives you a cause and effect relationship between a new feature or a change to your website and a business outcome that you care about. What is A/B testing? Fundamentally, what you do is you show users to your website one of two versions, either a control version or a treatment version, and then you track them as they go through your site. Give them a cookie so you make sure as they continue to visit your website they consistently see either variation A, the control, or variation B, the treatment, so it doesn't look like your website is changing. So any given visitor will always see the same one, but over the whole group of visitors, 50% for example might see version A or 50% might see version B. And then as you track them through the website, you record the business outcomes you care about. So in this example, it's conversion, and what you see is over a period of time, as enough people visit your website, in this example, 20% of people seeing version A of the website convert, and 60% of people seeing version B of the website, the new treatment or the new feature, convert, which shows that variation B converts substantially more people than variation A, which means we should choose variation B. So A/B testing actually has a really long history in terms of the statistics that underlie it. It was first pioneered by a Brit called William S. Gossett. He invented the statistical test that this is based on, which is called the student's t-test, because he published it anonymously as student. And it was originally designed to help understand brewing processes. He worked for Guinness breweries. So a lot of websites at this point are doing A/B testing. I'm going to give you an example from Etsy, which was one of the early adopters of A/B testing that would actually talk about it. And you can see this presentation from Frank Harris and Nelwyn Thomas where they talk about Etsy's product development with continuous experimentation, which is how they refer to A/B testing. A/B testing is also known as split testing. And if you have more than two variations, it's called multivariate testing. So there's these different variations on A/B testing, if you like, the same underlying statistical methods used. So in this example, there's a new feature that they're thinking of building, but before they actually go and build it, they want to go and gather some real data from users. So they build a small experimental prototype version of this feature that they can show to a small percentage of their users, and that is going to form the basis of an A/B test. This particular example is a new feature on Etsy. So if you don't know, Etsy is a storefront on the web where people who make their own goods can sell them through Etsy. And this new feature, when you search for a particular item on one person's storefront and it's not found, it will show you similar matches on search from other stores instead. And you can see there's a very simple configuration file that they use to enable A/B tests. And there's lots of tools these days that will do that for you. And then they have a dashboard. And what you can see here is there's a bunch of business metrics they're tracking, like visits to the site that result in cart payment, which is a crucial business metric, number of people who just bounce off the site, how many pages people visit, and then how many visits result in adding items to the cart. And they're tracking these metrics with the control group with the feature turned off, that's in green, and the treatment group with the feature turned on, that's in blue. And what you can see just underneath the name of the business outcome is this word control and then a number to the right of that. And if the number is grayed out, that means not enough people have visited the website to get statistically significant results. And you can see that that's true in most cases except for page count. So under page count, you can see that's not grayed out and there's an improvement of 0.26% in terms of page count for people using the treatment, the new feature, versus visitors who don't see the new feature. And so that might seem quite small, but when you've got a lot of visitors to your site because it's a consumer website, that can add up really quickly. That's also pretty typical. It's very rare to see increases or changes of more than 1 or 2% for a validated product where we're just adding new features to that product and it's pretty far along in its life cycle. So those changes aren't necessarily going to be big, but they certainly add up over your whole set of users. And websites who do A/B tests are not just running one at a time, they're actually running typically many at a time. So Etsy has a whole dashboard where you can see all those different A/B tests that they're running to test all these new features. So any major feature, they're going to run an experiment. And experiments typically want to be very simple and self-contained. And they can be for things as small as changing the color of a link or changing the color of a button. Those can produce statistically significant improvements in business metrics. How do we build prototypes for A/B testing? What's different from building out the whole feature? Well, firstly, we'll typically make sure that we only do the 20% of the functionality that delivers the 80% of the benefit. So we won't worry about corner cases or anything outside the happy path. We won't worry about sophisticated error handling, so we'll make the feature a lot less complex. Secondly, we'll only have to make it work on one browser. We don't have to add cross-browser support because we can filter out users based on browser. And third, we don't have to make it perform very well because we're only going to expose it initially to a small set of users. So that's how you reduce the scope of a prototype for an A/B test compared to building out the whole feature. Obviously, in order to be able to do A/B tests, you need to be able to release software rapidly. And this is why Amazon invested so much money in making sure that they could deploy changes frequently to production, a capability known as continuous delivery. So Amazon, back in 2011, when I took this slide from their presentation, was deploying to production every 11.6 seconds on a weekday to their production environment. They were doing up to 1,079 deployments an hour. On average, 10,000 boxes are receiving those deployments, up to 30,000 boxes are receiving those deployments, and they are at least an order of magnitude faster these days. So there's been substantial improvement over time in this metric. This is a key enabler to your ability to do A/B testing as a product manager. If it takes you months to release, you can't run experiments. But when you can run experiments, it's hugely powerful. Ronika Harvey is a researcher who worked first at Amazon in charge of their experimentation platform and then at Microsoft. And he's gathered a ton of data from A/B tests and written papers on it, and a book that he co-authored has just come out this year in 2020. And his data says that looking at well-designed and executed experiments, so experiments for features people thought would be a good idea, only about 1/3 were successful in improving the key metric. Now that's a pretty terrifying number. That means for a validated product where we're making small improvements, those ideas that people thought would be good only actually improve the business metrics we care about 1/3 of the time. 2/3 of the time they don't change anything or they make things worse. That's a terrifyingly poor odds of actually improving your website. And if you're doing something innovative, if it's an early stage product, the chances are much worse. So that's quite bad news. If you're not doing user research and A/B testing, probably 2/3 of the work that you're doing is useless. You could go to a beach 2/3 of the week and deliver the same value to your users if only you knew which 2/3 of the features you're building are delivering zero or negative value. And those features hurt you in 3 ways. First, there's the opportunity costs of not building something that users would want. Secondly, those features add complexity to your code base and make it slower for you to develop in future. And thirdly, you have to maintain those features forever because it's super hard to delete features. So A/B testing is crucial. If you can't do A/B testing because you don't get enough people visiting your website, you have to fall back to other forms of user research, of which there are many that we've talked about in the previous module. But don't do none. Always do user research. It's crucially important so that you're validating if your ideas are actually good ideas. I'm going to end with a story from the early days of Amazon, which was written up in a blog post by Greg Linden. So this blog post is from 2006. Greg Linden was working on Amazon's shopping cart, and he had an idea for a new feature that he wanted to build, which was to make recommendations at checkout based on what other people had bought who had bought the same things that you had bought. So if you go to a grocery store and you go to the checkout aisle, you might see candy bars because they know that people want candy bars. Well, his idea was, instead of giving people the opportunity to buy candy bars at checkout on Amazon.com, he would give you personalized recommendations. So you've got these things in your cart. Other people who bought those things also bought this. We'll recommend you this. So he builds a prototype, goes off to show a senior person in the product team his prototype, and the product manager says, sorry, Greg, you can't go and build that. It's going to distract people from checking out. So Greg is a bit sad, goes back to his desk, takes the prototype and pushes it into production in form of an A/B test, and gathers a bunch of data that shows that this feature actually substantially improves conversion. It's a really good idea. And so he goes back to the product manager. Product manager isn't very happy, probably, but nevertheless says, well, the evidence is really clear. We have to go and build out this feature. And that is why there is recommendations at checkout in Amazon.com today. He ends his blog post with this quote, which I think is really, really critical. He says, I think building this culture is the key to innovation. Creativity must flow from everywhere. Whether you're a summer intern or the CTO, any good idea must be able to seek an objective test, preferably a test that exposes that ideas to real customers. Everyone must be able to experiment, learn, and iterate. And that is at the heart of modern product management, that your role as a product manager is to build a team and a culture that enables experimentation and learning based on real data. People often talk about a data-centric culture, and this is at the heart of it. Everyone must be able to experiment, learn, and iterate. And this is why giving teams the ability to do user research is so crucial to effective product management.